Hello, and welcome to Season 3 of the Working While Homeschooling podcast, the podcast for workingwhilehomeschooling.com, where our mission is to help homeschooling parents make money, maybe even have a career, while continuing to homeschool and without losing their sanity. My name is Julie, and I am your host and resident career coach today. I want to thank you all for joining us and listening in. I hope you're doing well. This episode was brought to you by Homeschool Magnet. Check them out at homeschoolmagnet.com. Today, I wanted to discuss a topic I am seeing pop up over and over on the internet. I boiled this question down to, is it the homeschool curriculum, or is it the fact that I'm raising a preteen or teenager? I've seen this honestly boiled down in many different ways. I've responded to many online, but I wanted to talk about this conversation because I will admit to you guys, I am in the midst of it right now. I've got a 14 and a half going on. I'm about to kill her at 8. You guys know it. It happened in the last week or so. I don't know what thing has decided to possess my child. Question I've seen come up online a great deal is, please give me a homeschool curriculum because I need to blame the homeschool curriculum because my child is misbehaving, or my child is lazy, or my child has this terrible attitude. So if I just choose a better homeschool curriculum, that will fix everything. Now, here's the question, and I really want you guys to honestly analyze this for your own situation. Is it really the homeschool curriculum, or is it your kid? Okay, and I'm saying that as politely as I can, and I'm going to confess to you, I am preaching to the choir as well, okay, because again, I'm dealing with it too. Is it really the homeschool curriculum that's causing all the issues, or is it just your kid being your kid, right? And so this is how I break it down. When I am looking at these questions online that keep popping up in this category, guys, they'll say, please, everyone, tell me what the right curriculum is to use. And then they just start describing their situation. And their situation really doesn't have anything to do with education / the curriculum itself. Okay, this isn't my child's having difficulty understanding math. It comes down to what I call character development. Your kid isn't going to learn character development from a history program, okay? And that's just the long and short of it. Those of us who have maybe been in the homeschooling world for a while have finally kind of picked up on that. So I would say that when I first started homeschooling and I would go to homeschool conventions, a lot of the speakers would get up on stage and talk about character development, and you would see a lot of programs you could purchase out there about learning about character development, studying character development and character traits and that sort of thing. This is why I've often said that my parenting method is homeschooling and my parenting style is homeschooling, because you can build all these parenting life lessons you need to into your homeschool curriculum. Yes, it is a tool. You can teach that. But you could also go buy a specific curriculum and study different character development. But I'm going to tell you guys, it doesn't matter how much of that you've done. When you hit the preteen / teen years, it's like every single freaking bit of that you've been doing since birth has just flies out the window. At least in my situation, it has. And we have to go back over and start all over. So I'm going to give you some questions, okay, to help you decide whether or not it's your homeschool curriculum or if it is really just your kid. Is it something that is a situational problem, regardless of whether or not of what curriculum you use? If they're acting lazy about their work, is that work ethic, or is it the individual curriculum? Only you can tell us that, because you're the only one that's boots on the ground in your house looking at it. Are they getting so frustrated that they've just given up? Do they have that fixed mindset of, well, I'm not a math person, so they don't even try? They've given up the fight. Some of this, if you are coming from a public school situation, may be brought on by attitudes and beliefs that they're bringing with them from that public/private school situation. If they've ever had anyone tell them, well, you're not a math person, then if they've internalized that thought, then they've accepted that they're not a math person, and that does limit how much they try. I'm saying that as a former not a math person. Okay, let me confess, I'm still not a math person. I was an acting major, for Pete's sake. Two don't really go together. So if your child has been taught that just because it's hard, they're not good at it. If they have to work harder in some subjects, sometimes we automatically assume, well, I'm just not an artsy person, or I am not a math person, or whatever. If they've internalized that thought rightly or wrongly, it's very, very difficult to rip that out of them. Okay. And when you add in preteen and teen issues on top of that, sometimes these things can get ingrained in their brains like cement. So first of all, is it really the curriculum? I'm going to tell you, based on my personal experience, 80% of the time, it is not the curriculum. Okay. Sometimes your child may have learning issues or difficulties. That doesn't make it the individual curriculum. Sometimes because of your child's learning issues or difficulties, it really doesn't matter what curriculum you're going to use, because they will always still have that problem. Case in point, my oldest has some language difficulties. You would never know, because she's the most verbal person on the planet, until you sit her down and try to get her to write a sentence. I have personally gone through every single homeschool writing curriculum on the planet. Honestly, I have. And it doesn't matter which one of those you use. She's still going to have that difficulty. Okay. So it's really not the curriculum's problem. It's the child's individual learning style issue. So you have to figure out which curriculum is going to work best with her learning style issue. Now, as I said, I've gone through every single homeschool curriculum individual writing program I had. Okay, not grammar, not literature, not clumping it all together English, but just individual writing programs. And frankly, none of them worked for my kid. The only thing that truly worked was hiring a one-on-one tutor. And it's because of that individual one-on-one tutor and her just as a human being that has gotten through to my kid and made all the light bulbs go off. Now the light bulbs are going off. I can go back to individual curriculum studying and figure out which ones work best for my child and fit in best with our family, and then pull them in with that. Okay, so this is not to discount individual learning disabilities or learning issues. Whether or not you call it a disability is another story. And I've read articles that actually say this happens around the 8 or 9-year-old age for most girls. They drop their confidence to down about a quarter of what it was before they hit that age. There's something that happens around that age that makes girls especially drop confidence in everything to down like 75%, down 75% from what it was before. A lot of that is peers. A lot of that may be coming from outside influences. A lot of that might be all of a sudden they're having to work for it. It was easy before, and they hit like maybe 3rd or 4th grade, and then all of a sudden it gets hard, or it just changes from being fun learning to real learning, especially in math. You guys know what I'm talking about. And when it's hard, all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, I'm not good at it, versus I need to work at it. Okay. If your kid has always been told, I'm not good at school, you're not good at school, I'm not good at school, then just because you bring them home and put them in a house is not going to change their mind. So you're going to have to pickaxe that fixed mindset out of their head before you can get to real learning. Okay. So now that I've kind of quickly brought in learning issues or learning disabilities, or whatever that may be, Let's take that conversation out of this discussion completely. I am specifically talking to the parents of preteens and teens, okay? And when you come to me and say, fix my homeschool curriculum because my preteen refuses to do it, or my preteen is lazy, or my preteen has locked, acts like they have no internal motivation, or they won't get off, Minecraft for 18 hours a day. That has nothing to do with homeschool curriculum. Okay. That is your teen and their attitude and being just a freaking preteen. Okay. Is it the character building issue or the academics? How I personally think of this, and again, I'm coming from the always homeschooled crowd with my children. Would this problem still be there if they were in public school or not? Like, honestly, if I went and put them back in a public school situation, would it automatically fix this? 80% of the time, no. Putting back in a public school situation is not going to really fix it. It just means you aren't dealing with it anymore, or you're dealing with it much less because they're in school all day. And as a parent, you're seeing them from like maybe 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock every evening, and that's it. So you're not really seeing the issue. Are you just now seeing the issue because you've recently brought them home from public school and you're dealing with it 24 hours a day? Would putting them back in a public school situation really fix the situation or not? Again, personal experience, I'm going to tell you 80% of the time, no. So that tells me it's really not a homeschool problem, right? It's a character problem. It is a character development issue. Maybe that character issue for your child is honesty. Maybe that issue for your child is work ethic. Maybe for your child, it is that fixed mindset that makes them believe that they can't be good at it. And that is it goes into the question of the word yet. If they have just decided, I can't do this, period, versus I can't do this yet. And from talking to your child how they're thinking. That is really important. As I've mentioned on the podcast in previous episodes, we spent all of last school year studying growth mindset and learning about the word yet. I'm not good at this yet. Okay, so if you're noticing that with your kid, and I find in the preteen teen years, that's when I think those thoughts really do get solidified. And I think that's when a lot of kids give up. Maybe they tried really hard up until this point, and you get in those middle school years and they just give up on it, right? I'm not going to be a math person. What's the point? I don't want to try anymore. It's not blah, blah, blah. They've talked themselves into this. So first of all, you may be dealing with the fixed mindset issue, okay? Now, if you're looking at this and you're like, it's not the fixed mindset issue, I'm not quite sure if it's the homeschool curriculum. I think in this middle school / early high school age, okay, let's say 6th grade to 9th grade, it is the character building issue. They turn into total slackers, and it may just be one subject. It may just be one thing. Part of this is a frankly developmental issue because they're hitting that preteen stage. They're trying to assert their independence. And frankly, they're trying to see what they can get away with. Because of course, if they get away without ever touching their math curriculum for an entire year, then heck yeah, they're going to do it because they're 12, right? Figuring out how much you can get away with is actually a developmental stage in life. It is about asserting your independence, about, figuring out where your boundaries truly lie. I have been hit up against that, even in just simple things as, doing the dishes. And so like you barely wash them off and you stick them in the dishwasher, all the food gets caked on it and dried onto the dishes. And then they run the dishwasher 3 times so they don't have to do dishes again. And yes, she was doing it on purpose. And yes, it took me quite a while to realize it wasn't the dishwasher being broken. It was her doing that on purpose. So she would have to do her chores less. Guys, again, as frustrating as it is for us as the parent, that's normal at this age, okay? And so I know because it's happening in doing the dishes and doing her chores, it has nothing to do with homeschool curriculum. If she was in public school or private school, we'd be dealing with the exact same thing. That becomes a character issue. And so instead, we start talking about integrity and work ethic. Okay, I talk about integrity and work ethic with my preteen and teen. Okay, until they probably want to slap me upside the head. They know that lecture is coming. So if you're looking at this and you realize it's really not the homeschool curriculum, it's not the fact that they're in homeschool versus public school, it's not a learning issue, okay? It is a character development thing. What in the world can you do in these preteen and teen years? Well, let me give you the steps I've done. If you have any magical bullets to this, please, for the love of God, send them to me because I am right there with you. But I will tell you the things that I look at, okay? First of all, I do blame it on the development of their age, okay? It is a normal stage to go through, pushing your boundaries, asserting your independence, fighting the quid pro quo, as my daughter has really described it to me as, and frankly, seeing what they can get away with. So if you're in that stage of life in those lovely, lovely preteen middle school years, blame the stage, not the kid. Okay. And that has helped me kind of separate me loving this child versus the evil Knievel that she sometimes turns into. Okay. I can still love my child and hate the stage of development she's in. And so that really kind of is my mental trick, my mental cheat of frankly protecting our relationship. One day she will get past this pushing every button I have stage. I hope. Goodness, I'm holding out hope, guys. So number one is you need to make sure you're always protecting the relationship you have with your kid. Okay, nurture the relationship. Never let the avenues of communication be incinerated. As much as your teen is trying to do that, never let them do that, okay? Whether they are consciously or unconsciously trying to incinerate your avenues of communication between you two, don't let them, okay? Keep the lines of communication and the nurturing of that relationship open no matter what. A lot of, let's say, homeschool big speakers will go onto the stage and they'll go in their books and they'll tell you to protect the relationship. The relationship is more important than the schoolwork. And yes, that is true. Without discounting how important that schoolwork really is, okay? If your schoolwork and your education is X important, then the relationship is double that more important, okay? So nurture the relationship through this very difficult stage of life, no matter what it takes, because when they get older, you want them to come to you. When they get older or when the situations in their life get really hard, they need to know that I'm a safe place for them to come talk to. As much as I may not be feeling it right this minute, I know I need them to still see me as their safe place. And because I am their safe place, they feel like they can get away with them not protecting and nurturing the relationship at their age. Because again, developmentally, they are trying to push away from authority. They are trying to push away boundaries and they're trying to assert their independence. So the first thing you can do, honestly, is take a big, deep breath, guys. And I do this. I tell myself to do this on like a minute by minute basis. Take a deep breath. This is them fighting the system, not you. It just looks like they're fighting you. It looks like they're trying to, be mean to you or assert their independence from you. But it's really them fighting their boundaries and going through that age-appropriate developmental stage of trying to grow as a human being. And they are really in the midst of the process of growing up. If you read articles about this, you're going to see that their dopamine levels are messed up, their hormone levels are messed up, their hormone levels are messed up. And I say that twice because their hormones going wacky affects everything, to the point of I've seen some articles say, don't expect them to actually memorize or truly, quote unquote, learn in this age. Don't expect anything that they've read during these middle school years to stick when they're 16 and 17 and 18, because their hormones are affecting their mental processes as well. Okay. I don't know how much I agree with that, to be honest. I remember stuff I studied in middle school, but I will say the hormones are affecting their mental processes so much that sometimes they're just not rational. Understand that they may not be acting logically in this age because their body is not being logical. The only thing you can do is be hyper logical for them and take big deep breaths. And remember, this is not about me. Okay, all this coming at me from them is not about me personally. It's just about them and what they're going through right now. And frankly, I'm not sure how much control they are of themselves and their mental capabilities and their hormones and all of that. I'm not sure how much control they really have right now. So I have to be the most controlled one. I have to represent it for them. I have to show it to them. I have to be that for them. So at some point, they will start to emulate it. So take a lot of deep breaths, okay? A lot of really calm talking, okay? The more uncalm I feel, the less I can project that. So when I start to feel myself really start to lose it, that is the moment that I've almost kind of trained myself to trigger myself and to take a deep breath, and my voice has to go a heck of a lot calmer, okay? And I will get very, very logical with my child, and I will just start speaking very calmly, like I'm speaking to someone who does not speak English as their primary language, okay? As clear and as calm and as concise and direct communication as I can possibly do. And then I'm going to walk into my bedroom and basically scream myself into a pillow. And then I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to walk back out of the room and start over. Okay. So, yeah, a lot of calm talking with your child, not lecturing. Okay. I don't know if you remember this from your preteen and teen years, but when my parents would go into lecture mode, I would frankly just turn it off. Okay. I would just literally turn my ears off and go yada, 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 like the teacher in the Peanuts thing, the wah, 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 wah. Nobody listens when you get into that stage, right? You don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And they definitely don't want to hear it. As difficult as it is, you have to be the example of decorum and calm and logicalness and clear communication, because they are not able or capable of doing that at this stage. One of the other things I've instituted is written down expectations. Everything that they do for school is listed on the board. The expectations of what I have for them to do every single morning is not verbal. Okay, it is written down. I've been doing this since they were little, so they had a checklist. I find at this preteen and early teen stage, they need that written down expectations or written down checklist more than they needed it as a child. Okay, it was useful back then, but now they physically need it. Okay, because now I can make it the list on the board be the bad guy, not me. Okay, I'm like, have you looked at your list on the board? What have you checked off every single thing on the list on the board? Did you do your music practice? Have you done your dishes? What were your chores for this week? I just keep asking the questions over and over versus me telling them, go do the dishes. How dare you not do the dishes? How many times do I have to tell you to do the dishes? I'm not doing that for them, okay? I'm asking them, what is on the board? Have you checked your chores lately? What needs to be done? What is the status of this? Have you marked everything off? How did your math go today? Oh, I forgot to do math. Okay, well, you need to do that before you can get a Minecraft. Do you hear, like, I'm able to be calm because I am not being put in the position of the bad guy. Um, I don't know if that's going to work for anyone else, but it has worked for me. So I'm going to share that in hopes that it does work for you guys. Um, and because the written down expectations are on the board every single day, it never changes, then the argument is never with me, it's with the piece of paper. And I'll tell them, hey, don't argue with me. It's on the board. You know that. Argue with the board if you want, but don't argue with me. And of course, they roll their eyes with me because who's going to argue with a piece of paper? That's clearly impossible. And mom is so lame. But hey, it gets them out of back talking and arguing me. So whatever. I have had some parents come to me and say, it must be the curriculum because we never had this problem when they were in school and when they were in public school. And so I asked, and I kind of say, well, honestly, maybe they did have this problem in public school and you just weren't there to see it. If you are one of our homeschool parents that has recently come from a public school situation into a more traditional homeschool situation, okay, and by the way, I'm not talking about public school at home, okay, that's its own thing. If you're public school, they are required, the teachers are handling all the expectations. If you're homeschooling, you're handling it, okay? So if you've recently come from a public school situation, it could be, frankly, that teacher is dealing with 30 kids versus a one-on-one situation, and your kid probably got away with a lot more in a public school situation, okay? This has nothing to do with being against teachers. I have many teachers in my family. But when you put them in a situation where your kid is one amongst 30 and they're dealing with various needs and things in their classroom and trying to keep on time and keep to a schedule and so on, there's just very limited amounts of one-on-one direct involvement they can do at that stage. And they expect your kids to frankly buckle up. And if while they're failing, that the parent needs to kind of get involved versus them harping on your kid. Versus a homeschool situation where you may be sitting beside your kid 24 hours a day and harping on them nonstop to get their schoolwork done because you can tell that they're slacking. You can tell they're lazy. You can tell they're just acting like they don't care. You can see it because you are there with them one-on-one. And frankly, you are a lot more invested in their success because you're the parent and not the teacher. As much as their teachers may have been amazing teachers and very, very invested in their individual kids, as much as that may have been true for you, you as the parent are even more invested because you're the parent of that child, okay? So not to put the teachers down, but to say typically a parent's expectations and a parent wants more. Being thrust into that kind of situation as your teen can be very disconcerting, and they may not be handling the higher expectations very well. They may be rebelling against that more intense higher expectations that the individual curriculum is asserting on them, that you're using as for homeschool, or that you as the parent are asserting on them. All of a sudden, when they've been able to get away with a lot, they kind of been able to coast. They've been able to kind of, take maybe answers from their friends or kind of sneak things here or kind of, skim on by because they're one of 30 kids and they have none of those cheats to fall back on anymore. Yeah, you're going to get some rebellion. You're going to get pushback. So you will see in a lot of homeschool groups, especially, the chat groups and Facebook and that sort of thing, where homeschooling parents are advocating you need to deschool your kid. Okay, you need to deschool, you need to deschool, you need to deschool. This is what they're talking about. Okay, you have to break that habit and chisel that mindset out of their kid that they're doing just fine, where the kid's been able to sit in the back of the room and frankly just be lectured at, and then they're just tested on whatever they were lectured on versus truly learning and, let's say, really immersing themselves in the material. Okay, it's a very different mindset, and that is extremely difficult the older your kids get. Okay, so know that that is what your kid's situation is. That may help you understand it a bit more, but it also may help you understand what you're up against. And so then once you know what you're up against, you can plan your attack accordingly. Okay. If your kid, if you realize that your kid has been able to coast for a number of years and get away with not truly being an independent learner, or frankly, the work's been too easy for them and they haven't been challenged up until this point because they learn how to coast and they think that's school. And now all of a sudden they can't do that. And well, what school then? If your kid is going through that mindset, you need to start right there where they're at and just work on that and build that out. Now, beyond the retraining their brain from a public school to a one-on-one homeschool situation, we have other issues that may apply. We may have the I'm not going to listen to you because you are my parent stage. Okay. I'm not going to listen to you just because you're my mother. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, the flag, and the hat. Okay, guys, I totally understand that. When that happened to me and they no longer really want to learn from me and do our cute little homeschool curriculum around the table with mommy and do our cute little craft projects, I had to move to an almost all online curriculum or co-op curriculum or you bringing in a tutor because they were willing to learn, okay, but not from me. And in that case, you need to rely on other situations. Are there local co-ops where they can learn from other parents? Can you tag team with another parent, even if it's not a full co-op situation? Can you bring in a tutor? Can you rely on online virtual classes or a computer-based or online education program? Bring in the cheats, as I like to say, when you need to. And that is a big one that I've had to use in the middle school stage. My oldest one has just hit 9th grade this year, as you guys know. And really, she does not need me anymore. She is willing to be an independent learner and she has gotten self-motivated. So she goes through her homeschool curriculum. And I've learned little visual clues now that when she's slacking, I can see it. Okay, when she purposely does not come tell me about her math, I know math did not go well today, or she's trying to ignore it today, or whatever it might be. So you'll learn your kid on a super deep level when you're homeschooling, okay? Learn their tricks and their tells so you can call them on it. One of the reasons I talk about this as a character development issue when we talk about integrity and work ethic, I think of this as a career thing. When my kid gets out of my house and gets into college, they're going to have to be completely self-motivated. And they're going to have to be completely independent learner at the college level because professors don't care. And I'm not going to spend money on college just for them to go flunk out because they're being lazy. All right. But even beyond that, when they get into a work-life situation, when they are adults, if they haven't learned work ethic and independent learning, being self-motivated, their career work life is going to be rough for them. Okay. To learn that at a young age and stage is extremely, extremely important. Okay, so going through this torture with your kid now in these preteen years is going to help them in the long run. Okay, this is something they need to learn too. They don't need to learn just history. They need to learn how to push through. They need to learn how to deal with a boss that they don't really want to work with, aka their parents. Because one day they'll have a boss they really don't want to work for and they still have to do their job, right? So they have to learn these life skills, this character development in order to succeed in life, okay? It's a course they need to learn just as much as math or science. So when they're in that character development stage, if that is the issue, what are some of the things that you can do? You can use the talking very calmly, listing out their expectations on paper. Okay, that does work. Sometimes I will make them write it for themselves as I dictate it. because the act of physically handwriting it out is a sense memory thing. It trains their brain to remember it versus when they just hear it. It also saves me from lecturing. So I will tell them to pull out a piece of paper. We're going to all take notes right now. And I'm going to give you a list of things, and I expect them to be done. And I list them out. I wait for them to write them all down. I have them review it back to me out loud. Okay, read me off your list and let's make sure you got everything. And then they list it. I do any corrections needed. And I'm like, okay, you have your list. Go do it. And that's it. And when they come back to me, then I kind of frankly grade how they did on that. Did they do it well? Then go back and do it again. And then go back and do it again. And go back and do it again and again and again and again until it's done the way I want it done. And then we have the discussion, if you had just done it right the first time, you wouldn't have had to repeat doing the dishes 12 times. And your life would have been so much easier. And then we would have had time for you to go out with your friends today, like I promised you could if your work was done well. You have to almost lay these things out logically for your kids because, again, they don't have the ability to lay it out logically for themselves. They have to, frankly, connect those dots in their brains, and you have to do it for them until they figure out how to do that, develop those neural pathways that go from point A to point B equals C on their own. It's very, very frustrating, but it does work. You may want to check out their sleep cycles. If they're not sleeping well, they are going to be a bear, okay? Preteens need a heck of a lot more sleep than they think they do, all right? So enforce bedtime. Remove every single thing electronic from their room. If you're getting attitudes, parent after parent after parent has told me to pull their social media. And I will have to tell you, it does work because when I start getting Evel Knievels in my house, I will immediately go pull their laptops, their tablets, their phones, whatever they may have, and start checking every single email and social media. Have the conversation, okay? Lather, rinse, repeat, okay? Over and over. But sleep cycles and social medias are often a major culprit of really bad attitudes, okay? Healthy food habits. If you notice your kid is downing caffeine like it's crack, if you notice that all they will eat is carb-based and sugar-based foods and they're never getting a vegetable, that is going to affect their attitudes because their body's fuel is bad. Okay, if you put bad gas in a car, it's going to affect the car. Well, if you put bad fuel in a body, it's going to affect the body. So that means, force them to throw some vegetables in that plate, force them to cut back on the amount of caffeine if you allow your kids to have caffeine, force them to get decent sleep, and force them to remove a vast percentage of that social media out of their lives. When in doubt, if you're starting to notice certain things happen on a hormonal schedule, and moms of girls, you know what I'm talking about, start throwing them some freaking chocolate, okay? What were your healthy coping mechanisms? And frankly, what worked for you? And you start building some of that into your kids' lives. Whether that may be throwing them some chocolate, letting them watch that sappy, silly, dumb TV show they like so they can veg out for just a moment, throwing some, physical activity, getting out of the house and getting some vitamin D in their life, whatever it may be, okay? They need to learn healthy habits of just dealing with the hormones even from us. They need to learn healthy habits of dealing with stress, okay? And how to deal with situations where they're just stressed out and they can't handle it. And let's face it, the pandemic by this point of the year has everyone in that situation, okay? So those are just some of the things that work or I've tried, guys. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've got this all figured out because I really don't. Last week was just terrible in our house. To the point where I just looked at my husband and said, I need a break from them. I need to get out of this house and just not see the children for a while. And he looked at me and he kind of looked at my crazed eyes and just said, okay, get out. Whatever you need to do, just get out of the house, whatever it takes. I got it. And he knows when my eyes start getting the crazy eyes, then it's time for me to get out of the house. Or he needs to step in and lay down the law. I hope these ideas were useful for you guys. I hope some of this was helpful, or at the very least, you can hear that it's not you. It's really not your kids. It's the age and the stage. And most often, it's not the homeschool curriculum itself either. Now, as we wrap up our episode today, I want to thank you all for listening in. There are a ton of great podcasts out there, but you chose to spend your time here with me, so thank you. In the show notes, you're going to find the links to my site, workingwhilehomeschooling.com, and all of the great ways you can connect with me online. Now, if you enjoyed today's podcast, consider becoming one of our listener supporters by following the link in our show notes. A small monthly donation helps us continue with great content and interviews like you've heard here today on the Working While Homeschooling podcast. Your positive online reviews, subscribing to our podcast, sharing it with your friends is all greatly appreciated as well. And if you know someone that you think would be a great guest of our podcast, please let me know at julie@workingwhilehomeschooling.com. A special thank you goes out to Homeschool Magnet at homeschoolmagnet.com for supporting this episode and our Working While Homeschooling parents. Thank you for listening in today, and please make sure you join us in our Facebook group for a continuing conversation on today's topic and beyond. I look forward to seeing each of you soon at our next podcast for Working While Homeschooling.